Assalamualaikum, good afternoon. Let me introduce myself. Yuman Akbar from Cooperative Economic Education 2016. Here I will present my thesis entitled The Effect of Government Spending, Domestic Investment and Foreign Investment on Economic Growth 2013 to 2019. Data description. Research in conducting this study used four variables consisting of one dependent variable and their independent variable. The dependent variable is economic growth, while the independent variable is government spending, foreign investment, and domestic investment. In the study, research used secondary data in the form of panel data, namely a combination of cross-section data and time series data. Research obtained the data, namely from the publication of the Indonesian Central Statistic Agency or BPS. The time span used in this study is 7 years, from 2013 to 2019. 1. Economic growth. Economic growth is process of change economy activity to be better than the previous time in an area. Economic growth can also reflect an increase in the production of goods and services produced by a particular area. Thus, the data used by research in this study is to use secondary data on economic growth obtained from the publication of BPS Indonesia from 2013 to 2019. It can be seen from the table above that the rate of economic growth in each province of Indonesia is fluctuating and tend to decline from year to year. And if there is an increase in economic growth, the growth is still relatively small. 2. Government spending. Government spending is one of the fiscal policy whose policy is to regulate the revenue and expenditure of an area in order to achieve the planned economy. Regional expenditure and revenue can be reflected in the APBN for the national scale. Thus, the data that research used in this study were secondary data on government expenditure obtained from publication of BPS Indonesia from 2013 to 2019. It can be seen from the table above that government spending from its region tend to always increase from year to year. This means that the central government instructs the local government to increase their spending every year in the hope that its region can increase its economic growth, so that national economic growth will also follow. 3. Foreign investment. Foreign investment is an investment activity in the territory of the Republic of Indonesia which is carried out by foreign citizens whose capital ownership can be full from foreign citizen or capital that is patungan in nature with Indonesian citizens themselves. Secondary data. Thus, the data that research use this research is secondary data on foreign investment obtained from BPS publication from 2013 to 2019. It can be seen from the table above that PME in Indonesia is fluctuating, which has a tendency to increase from year to year, which means that the central and local government can maintain an investment climate that foreign investors can trust to invest in Indonesian territory, from the western part of Indonesia to the remote part of the eastern part of Indonesia. 4. Domestic investment. Domestic investment is investment activity carried out by Indonesian citizens or WNI, government industry or government business entities whose activities are carried out in the territory of the Republic of Indonesia. Thus, the data used by research in this study is data on domestic investment secondary obtained from the publication of BPS Indonesia from 2013 to 2019. It can be seen from the table above that domestic investment throughout Indonesia is fluctuating and has a tendency to increase from year to year. This means that the government makes regulation easier for Indonesian citizens who want to invest their fund in Indonesia, which has the fund that the increase in PMDN can encourage regional economic growth. Thereby, the national growth will also increase. B. Data analysis technique. 1. Hypothesis testing. A. Choice test. Based on the table above, the probability value obtained is 0.000, which means the probability value is smaller than 0.05. So it can be concluded that the model to be used temporarily, namely the fixed effect or HO, is rejected. B. Hausman test. Based on the result of the research table, the probability value of random cross-section is 0.000 smaller than 0.05. Then HO is rejected. H1 is accepted. Then it can be concluded that the model to be used in this study is the fixed effect model. Thus, it's no longer necessary to perform a Lagrange multiplier. 2. Classic assumption test. A. Multicollinearity test. This test aims to determine whether or not there is a correlation between the independent variable in the regression model that has been selected. Data can be said to be free from this symptom, namely if the correlation value between the independent variable is not greater than 0.80. Based on the result of the study, it is concluded that the regression model doesn't experience that symptom because the value between the independent variable does not exceed 0.80. B. Heterogeneity test. Based on the result of the research table that the probability value of each of independent variable, government expenditure, PMA, PMDN, exceed the value of 0.05, it can be concluded that the model used by the research did not experience heterogeneity symptom. 3. Hypothesis testing. A. Panel data regression equation. The panel data regression equation used by researchers in this study is to be able to estimate the state of the independent variable if the dependent variable is increased or decreased. Based on the result of the multiple linear regression equation carried out by the researcher, it can be concluded that the constant value is 4.3906, which means that the variable X1 government expenditure, X2 foreign investment, X3 domestic investment is 0, then the amount of economic growth is 4.3906. D. The coefficient of determination. Based on the table above, we can see that the R square is 0.509328 and the adjusted R square value is 0.421447. If the R square value is getting close to the zero value in the study, it can be concluded that the independent variable in the study has a weak influence on the independent variable in the study. On the other hand, if the R square value is closer to the value 1, it can be concluded that the free variable has a strong influence on the independent variable in the study. A. Conclusion. Based on the research have long conclusion can be drawn. 1. Government spending has an insignificant effect on Indonesian economic growth in the 2013 to 2019. That can be seen with the probability value of 0.8475, which is greater than 0.05. 2. Domestic investment has an insignificant effect on Indonesian economic growth in 2013 to 2019. This can be seen with the probability value 0.7617, which is greater than 0.05. 3. Foreign investment has a significant influence on Indonesian economic growth in 2013 to 2019. This can be seen with the probability value of 0.000, which is smaller than 0.05. B. Implication. Based on the conclusion that the research described, there are several implications that are obtained as follows. 1. Government spending does not significantly and negatively affect economic growth. This is because state spending has not been implemented optimally as a whole and is not right on the target met by government. Therefore, in the future, the central and local government must be efficient and optimal so that the target expenditure to be spent in the following year is accurate. 2. Foreign investment has a significant and a positive influence on economic growth. The implication of the research review indicated that the climate created by the government has attracted foreign investors to cultivate. 3. Invest in Indonesia. 4. Domestic investment has an insignificant effect on economic growth. The implication of this research indicate that the law and regulation the government has made for domestic investors are less attractive and make domestic investors hold back from investing in Indonesia. She suggestion the central government and region government must be wiser and in allocating budget to be carried and emphasize the principle of technical efficiency, allocation efficiency, and economic efficiency. The central and local government must be create and invest in climate and regulation that are less complicated than before, which will make foreign investment in Indonesia increase from the previous year. The government must also create an easy climate and regulation for domestic investor, not only for domestic investor, foreign investor. More and less the presentation. I apologize. That's all and thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.